Hey, everybody, it's the Plant-Based Business Hour. I'm Elysabeth Alfano, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. And what a day it has been already, but it's so much better because I'm with you. I have some interesting things to discuss with you today. The world is all a flurry. Obviously, we know what the headlines are for the world as a whole. And then even when we look at the plant-based innovation space, we see that it is tumultuous out there. But could these tumultuous times actually be the right time to launch a brand? I don't know the answer to this, but my guest does today. I want to bring on the very fabulous Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer at Mattson, Barb Stuckey. Thanks for being with me today.
Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm happy to have you here. I should mention that not only are you the lead guru, I'll say, in marketing and innovation at Mattson, but also that you're the author of a book called Taste. So I want to get into that later as well. Love it. Show your book. Show your book. I assume it's available on Amazon.
Yes, it is. Everywhere you buy books.
Wonderful. Everybody get that book. Of course, we're going to talk about it a little bit later in the show. But first, I want to explain to people, because they might not have heard of the company Mattson. I want to explain generally what Mattson does, and then Barb can pick up from there, taking us through really what's going on in the marketplace and is this a good time to launch a brand? So Mattson is a company based in California that can really take a brand from start to finish. So that means starting in the kitchen and tweaking the food taste technology, getting it exactly right for that consumer, and then building off of the consumer insights in the marketplace to get that strategy and positioning right. So it's a company that every brand really wants to know about. So given this, Barb, please share with me what you're seeing right now in the plant-based space out there.
Well, we're still seeing a lot of activity, and being a product innovation firm, we're usually working on things that are going to launch over the course of the next year to even 2 years out. And we have not seen the prevalence and frequency of plant-based alternatives slow down from a development perspective. Now, whether or not our clients choose to launch their brands during the next year or two is up to them, but we are doing a lot of work in the space, everything from alt dairy to meat to some of the other technologies that I know we're going to talk about later. But we still feel like there's lots of room and lots of opportunity. While growth may not be as exponential as it has been over the last, let's call it 5-6 years, we still think that there's plenty of room for new brands and plenty of room for innovation, and that's really critical.
Yeah, I love that you say that. The CEO of Maple Leaf Foods, which actually is a meat company, said that he anticipates that the plant-based plant-based meats will grow 10 to 15% over the long term, predicated on innovation. And that really is going to be the key to driving consumer adoption. When you say innovation, can you explain to us, are you talking about taste? Are you talking about texture? Are you talking about just novel ingredients? What do you mean?
Well, I would say all of the above. So, let's talk about the biggest innovation, the lowest hanging fruit that's out there, we think, is just really making the products that are out there taste better and making sure that new ones that enter the market space are excellent and consumer ready. And that's, selfishly, that's what we do here at Mattson, is we help our clients figure out exactly how to position their brand, how to identify unique spaces in the market, and then develop the product. And if our clients need us to, then commercialize the product for them, usually at a contract manufacturer or their own facility. So, I think that there was a lot of movement and activity over the last 5 years or so, with people feeling like we have to get into the marketplace. If we don't get into the marketplace, we're going to miss it. And I think that has happened, and not all of the products were perhaps ready to launch as we would consider that from a product optimization perspective. So we think that there is a lot of opportunity to make them better. And the challenge with this is that, there's a lot of people out there that are skeptical, a lot of people that are a little bit worried that their family maybe won't like this plant-based alternative that they've bought. So it's really incumbent upon the industry to make sure that that first experience with plant-based is really excellent. And so, that is where we think that's where you're going to get people for life, right? I mean, we all hear about the MVP, the minimally viable prototype. So just get to something and get it into the marketplace. And I think that's relevant for technology apps, for example, for electric cars, whatever you're talking about. And by the way, I'm coming to you live from Silicon Valley, so these are our neighbors. But it's a little bit different, because when you buy a food and you've hired it to do a job for you, right? So you're hiring it to solve the convenient dinner solution problem that you have every weeknight. And, when you have a product that doesn't deliver on that, oftentimes it goes in the garbage and it just doesn't get eaten. So it doesn't do the job it was hired to do. Now, it's a little bit different when you've got a technology app and you come up with an improvement to your product and you can just push that out on the app. Or, if you're Tesla, you can just push the upgrade out over the airwaves. That's not how the food industry works. You've got to make the food. You've got to get it into distribution. You've got to get it on the store shelves. You got to get it to the consumers' homes. And when it's there, it's got to do that job, or it's just not going to get hired again. So, it's just not as easy as pushing a button. So, I just want to make the plea for companies to really invest in the prototype, invest in your product. And there are so many new ingredient technologies out there. There are so many new processing technologies, so many new places to go where you don't have to go down the trodden path. So we feel like there's a lot of opportunity for that sort of first level in terms of just raising the quality of what's already available.
Yeah. So you've touched on so many things that I want to pinpoint. First of all, this is like way back in the beginning of what you were saying. I'm surprised that some companies might come to you, work on something, and then maybe not even launch it. Does that happen very often?
Not a lot. It depends. We work with companies as large as some of the largest food companies in the world. And then we work for entrepreneurs and everyone in between. So it would be unlikely that an entrepreneur would develop a product and not launch it. And that goes for small companies as well. But, there have been many times in the past where we've worked for large companies that have developed plant-based alternatives. And they've chosen either not to launch or to go in a different direction and to just invest their innovation funds elsewhere, or to partner with someone else so that they didn't have to do it themselves. So that there's a lot of reasons. And actually, there's quite a lot of collaboration happening in the industry these days. So it's uncommon, but it's not unheard of.
And when you say that, there's some products that did launch and maybe they hadn't quite yet nailed that taste, are you seeing that a lot of your customers are already existing clients, companies that maybe didn't work with you in the beginning, and now they're thinking, oh, maybe we should really nail that taste and work with Mattson?
Yeah, I mean, we do get a lot of products that have been on the market and just that people recognize that they're not performing as well as they could. And so we do a lot of what we call optimization. We've never met a product or a formula or a supply chain that we couldn't improve. So, we feel like it's great to get a second set of eyes to look at a product and think about how would you make this better. Our lab, our lab here in the background, you can see right behind me, we have the capabilities of working from plant-based cheeses and meat alternatives to more highly value-added products. So we're working all across the continuum. We get a lot of that work, but what we really love is when a client comes to us and says, there's so much happening out here. There's so much already on the market. How do we get into this space with something that's unique and has a right to win? You have to go and you have to find that white space.
Yeah, so much to talk about there. I love that because I do consulting for brands from time to time. I'm no Mattson, but people do come to me and they say, well, help me find the white space and where can I have a brand that really wins? And I think they're related, actually, this conversation about taste and then how can I find a winning position? It's what Mattson does so well, what I also work on with brands. How can I find that winning position? Because I think when some of the products launched and the taste wasn't perfect, they maybe didn't understand who their consumer was. So if you're a vegan, you're just happy that the replacement exists, you'll take a different taste profile potentially than the meat eater who could care less if the product exists. It has to taste great first. Then they'll consider things like animal welfare and the planet, deforestation, better water use, et cetera, and their own health. So it's knowing that consumer. I'm curious now that you mentioned this, what kind of white spaces do you see out there in the marketplace?
Well, lots of them. So, I mean, let's just start by talking about alternative meat. So, I'm not sure the world needs another plant-based burger. I think it could use some better plant-based burgers. There are also some amazing products on the market today. What I do think, though, is that those companies that are playing in plant-based meat alternatives could be offering the consumer, who is, these days very, very stressed for time and convenience and looking for solutions for dinner. So I do think there's lots of opportunity to move into the meals space, whether it's, I think Impossible just launched a line of bowls, so plant-based bowls that were full meal options, as opposed to them just selling the center of the plate protein. So, I mean, that's a huge leap forward. And I think that a lot more of that is going to happen, whether it's in the frozen case or whether it's in the refrigerated case, whether it's in the service deli. There's just a lot of opportunities for companies to make their products easier to slot into the life of the consumer. I also feel like there's opportunity around the plate. So there's opportunity for salad dressings and sauces and condiments. And, of course, we still believe that there's a lot of upside in the cheese category, which has been one of the slower ones to really develop in the alternative space. So, these are big spaces, meals and sauces and condiments and dressings, and cheese is multi-billion-dollar category. And there's some really good stuff out there, but there's still, I think, a lot of technology breakthroughs that need to happen in order to enable the biggest and most widely used cheeses to really excel in the marketplace. And of course, I'm talking about things like cheddar and mozzarella and things like that.
The basics. Yeah. I would argue that there's actually not just a room for cheeses, which we haven't even really tip of the iceberg. That you could actually own the entire cheese category if you nailed it. No one's really nailed it yet. So you have a chance to own the whole category. You can't maybe do that with plant-based burgers anymore. There are enough good plant-based burgers that you wouldn't own the category like Beyond Meat and Impossible went out to do early on and pretty much share that category. And I think I'll actually even take back what I just said. Pretty much that's a Beyond Meat category. We talk about them in the same sentence because we all know of Impossible Foods, but the scale of the two companies is completely different. And the only kind of international real penetration scale is with Beyond Meat. So they kind of own the category. But I'll say you don't have to own the category to be successful. I'd like to see, we talked about positioning before. I'd like to see brands go, really for the kids sector, or maybe I'll call it the parenting sector. I think that's a huge sector that hasn't really been addressed. And, you don't have to just nail cheese for everyone, or meats. You could nail just string cheese for kids. You could really segment out. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the strategy of the largest restaurant company in the world, McDonald's, right? Why do they have the play places at McDonald's? It's to get the kids in, to introduce the kids to their food, and then hopefully have such positive experiences as children that they grow up as lovers of the brand. And that's exactly what these brands really should be thinking about. I think that's very, very smart. Once you you hook a consumer on your product early on, they're going to continue with you, even if where they're starting is kids. As long as your product line allows consumers to grow into and up with the brand, that's a great strategy. Talking, about children, starting all the way back to, early formula, and there's a lot of dairy allergies where babies can't have dairy-based formulas and other snacks that kids are using. So I think that's a really, really smart place to be. And, there's a lot of really good kids brands out there that are doing things in the vegan space. Like Annie's, for example, has done a fantastic job, at least with their center store mac and cheese business and soups and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a brand Goodles out there that is also trying to reach kids and really reach parents through kids. I mean, who doesn't love mac and cheese? So when you get that really nailed, you've got a consumer for life. But so much innovation yet to be done, as we were saying. And if you read the headlines in the Financial Times or even Wall Street Journal and New York Times, you might think that plant-based was dead, but that's not at all what you're seeing, correct?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's going to be a shakeout? For sure. I mean, there's only so many facings and so many brands that you can have in a category. But I mean, let's just take a meat as a case study. Let's just look at dinner sausages. I mean, this is a category that my household uses, like the chicken apple sausages and those types of products. If you go to that category in the grocery store these days, at least in mainstream grocery, there's 6 to 10 brands depending on where you are, and of those 6 to 10 brands, each one has 6 different SKUs on the shelf. I mean, it's just the consumer choice in the category is huge. So I think there's room for multiple players and multiple SKUs within the categories. I feel like there will eventually be a shakeout. And what will that shakeout be? It'll be people who have built the right business model, people whose products are affordable, companies whose products are delivering the nutrition that consumers want, which is, for center of the plate anyway. They're wanting protein that keeps them full. And, of course, the product has to be great. It has to, because Elysabeth, to your point, you really nailed it, that the market opportunity is with the flexitarian. It's not with the vegan. I mean, the vegan, like you said, will hopefully buy your product. That's, hopefully you get both vegans and vegetarians. But in order to build a real sustainable business, you have to appeal to the flexitarians. And they're comparing it to meat. They're going to compare it to meat, at least for the next generation, until our Gen Zs are old and aging. There's too much good stuff out there to compare it to, that your product just has to perform.
Yes, I would agree with that. Although, I hear people talk a lot about, there's going to be a shakeout, there's going to be a consolidation. You're going to see meat companies buy the plant-based brands. You're going to see the plant-based brands come together and solidify as one company rather than two, because it's too tricky out there. And I think if that innovation piece continues, that might not be the case, but we might not only have the categories that we have today, but we might have new categories, because if the innovation does its job right, you won't just have a meat replacement. You'll have a better than meat option. So maybe it's the exact burger that's like the meat burger, but maybe it's the hybrid cultivated meat and plant-based burger that is its own new category, maybe, or healthier plant-based options. That's almost a completely new category. So not the trying to be meat, but trying to be better than or healthier than. So I don't know. What do you think about this idea that the consumer wants options and choices, and maybe there's room for even more than what we have now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big believer in vegetables being more a part of the plant-based conversation than they are today. So, I think that consumers are open to a hybrid situation where a product may be based on a plant-based chassis and contain legumes or vegetables that are visible to the consumer. I mean, we do think that this is a coming trend, and we've actually had clients asking us for maybe a burger alternative in our line where you can see the beans, or you can see the vegetables, or you can see the grains, because while that's where the category started back in the day of Boca and Garden Burger and Morningstar Farms, they were different products. They were fully cooked, were sold in the frozen section, and in that fresh meat section, or in the wherever else they're shelved in the grocery store. It's kind of different by retailer, but wherever they are, there's definitely opportunity to connect in the consumer's mind plant-based with actual plants that are visibly identifiable as plants. We haven't quite gotten there yet in a lot of these, with a lot of these early entrants, but I do think that work is happening right now, and that there's going to be more entrants in that blended situation.
Well, so I think it remains to be seen, because I hear so many of the headlines saying, oh, plant-based, maybe it's not as healthy as we thought. And my comment therein is, we're not here to be a catch-all for absolutely everything. Some people just want a burger, and they want that taste of a burger, and they're not there for the health. They're there for the burger. When I go to a birthday party, I intend to have birthday cake. Most likely I'm having 2 slices, and with frosting. And I'm not looking for the healthy birthday cake. I am there to eat birthday cake at will. So, not everyone is looking for a healthy option. And I say on the show a lot, who people are and who people say they are on a survey, 2 different things. So I'm not sure the consumer wants the healthy option as much as they say they do. And I'm not sure it's the entrepreneur's job to school them that they should want something other than what they're asking for. I don't know. What are your thoughts on, should we put out more healthy, and should we school the consumer on what is healthy?
Well, I guess there's 2 different ways to look at it. One is in the short term, and one is in the longer term. In the short term, if you're going to get people in the category, you have to start with something that tastes really great.
Yes,
and a high-fat, high-sodium burger tastes great. I mean, let's be honest. But also, let's be honest, can you eat one every night, 7 days a week for dinner? You probably shouldn't. And that's true of beef burgers and plant-based burgers and any kind of burger. So there has to be options. And I do think if we give the consumer really great options that are vegetable forward and bean forward, and they still just taste great, they're satisfying, they're full of protein so that they fill you up, because that's one of the jobs that these center of the plate protein alternatives are hired to do by the consumer. So I think there's opportunity to do both. So it's not an and or, it's both. And I think the question also is, what do you mean by healthy? What is healthy?
100%.
And healthy in some ways is less cholesterol for some people. For other people, it's lower sodium. For other people, it's, we all have our own personalized diets these days. And so I think if you even were to just segment the market by all the different diets that everyone is following, whether it's low carb versus keto versus Whole30 versus, all of the different things that are going on, there's opportunity right there. And I have not seen any of those products really positioned against those specific diets.
Yes, neither have I, which is why I think there's so much room for the category to just keep growing. So yes, maybe we'll have consolidation in that. If you're not a good tasting product, you're out of the game, folks. If you've gotten that from this interview, that's of course where you want to be, a good tasting product. But there are all these different iterations on, and I love your point, what is healthy? It's different to other people, because there's healthy and there's not go for pie in the sky, just go for healthier. You've moved the needle a little bit. You don't have cholesterol. Take the win and the taste and move on, so that might be enough for people. So I think I'm actually seeing the category potentially bursting open and less consolidation and more innovation. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But as we kind of move on a little bit to another topic, because you work with so many brands, what are some of the classic mistakes that you see almost every entrepreneur, maybe not the young or the seasoned multinational company, although maybe they make them too, or maybe they make different ones. I don't know. What do you see with the brands that come through your door?
Well, I mean, you have to remember we're in the innovation and product development and commercialization business. So we're looking at pre-launch. And so, we're thinking about our clients from start, like what is the strategic goal of the company and the founder through launching the product. I think one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face is just they're not capitalized well enough, and they don't realize that it's a long journey to market. It is not an inexpensive endeavor, and you have to have partners all along the way, and there's costs all along the way. And I think just a lot of companies run out of money and just realize that it's just going to cost more to get where they want to go than they had intended. So that's the first thing I would say with the startups and the entrepreneurs. The other is not investing enough in go-to-market strategy. So really spending the time and the effort to figure out what is the best channel for us and what we want to do. So maybe it's not going to the grocery store. Maybe it's going to food service. Maybe it's with your technology becoming a B2B ingredient. Maybe it's something else that I haven't even hit on here. Is it maybe doing something direct to consumer? Because everyone has different objectives, and there's not a one size fits all. So it's really spending that time up front before you start anything else, before you start the product development, before you start the brand strategy, and before you start any of that, to really make sure that you've figured that out. And that's something that we help clients do. We also help clients all across that spectrum that I just laid out: B2B ingredients, novel ingredients to the food system, consumer packaged goods, food service suppliers, you name it. Even food service operators who are trying to get in the market with a plant-based restaurant brand. So lots of opportunity, we think.
Yeah, and I love what you say about it being a marathon, not a sprint, because one of the things I talk about with my clients is, nail one market.
Yeah.
Don't always go for that Whole Foods national market. Just nail one regional market that you think is going to connect the best to your product and build from there. Because whatever you do, of course, you'll pivot a little bit. You'll learn as you do your first launch. So do a regional launch. And I don't even mean regional like the West Coast of the United States. I mean like if you could nail Chicago,
right,
build from there, or nail Los Angeles, or something meaningful that you can learn from, but don't try to take on everything, because it'll ultimately be too much. And, the goal of the entrepreneur is to make that money last as long as you can. And those are usually the ones that come out in the end, is those who've made their money last the longest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to just give a shout out to a company that is doing what you just said. They picked one product and one market. And this is the company Ecovative that had a spinoff named Atlas. Their consumer product is called My Bacon. It is bacon. And that's where they put their stake in the ground, and said that that's what they were going to do. They are a New York-based company, and so they're focusing on the market in New York, and they're just going to get it right. And they're not going to move on until they get that very small geography that they're covering right. So great.
Founder Eben has been on this show, and I have had my bacon on this show, and it's bacon.
It's amazing.
It is bacon, and I just
like bacon,
love them.
Like bacon. It's yeah. Now that is a game-changing product, right? So the innovation that they brought there was that this is not a soy-based product. It's not an extruded product. This is a whole food product that is grown like mushrooms are grown, and made from mycelium. I'm a big fan. Huge fan.
I'm a big fan. And so we're back to that category and how big can it expand? Right now, bacon has to be one of the worst things for you on the planet. It is a carcinogen because it's got nitrates in it. Obviously, it's almost all fat, and you never do it without frying it, usually in its own fat, and you're adding fat, and it's like fat on top of fat. And then you've got animal cholesterols and the many other things such as antibiotics and hormones. Now, imagine a fabulous tasting bacon out of mushrooms. Oh my word, you almost have a new category, healthy bacon. It is indeed life affirming.
Yeah, it is. And think about how many years turkey bacon has been on the market and how that product has not evolved at all and has never been as good as pork bacon. And then here comes this product it's not even made from animals, and it just leapfrogs what's on the market. So, not only is there an upside to the plant-based alternative in this case that we're talking about, but there's a potential downside to the animal-based alternatives today, because the healthier bacon option for you today would be to go to a turkey bacon, which is very much of a sacrifice.
Yeah, I've never liked that product for so many reasons. Okay, but this is a great segue. Bacon made out of mushrooms, how do you communicate that one to the consumer? So when we come up with all these category busting innovations that lead to these wonderful new products that have really never been shown before to the consumer, this is why my heart goes out to the plant-based products that are trying to just replicate meat, because they're trying to give the consumer something that they can file away in their head. Burger, I've had a burger, I understand what this is. Okay. Without any frame of reference, mushroom bacon, who has a frame for that? How do you communicate these kind of products to the consumer? Now, I know you don't focus on communication strategies per se, but is that part of any of the dialogue that you have with your brands?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're definitely talking about how to communicate it, how to name it, how to position it, and what is the occasion where this product is going to be used. Is this for one person in the household, or is it for the whole household? So yeah, we're definitely, especially during ideation and conceptual development, we're helping our clients figure that out. So how do you communicate it? Just using the My Bacon as an example, you do a lot of talking to your potential customer. So both the retailer as well as the end consumer, who's going to be the one buying the bacon from the grocery store, putting it in a pan, cooking it. And you want to understand everything. You want to understand when they go to the shelf in the grocery store, how are they shopping the category? You want to understand how they're making the product at home, and is it performing for them in the time and the convenience aspects that they need? And then you want to understand, did everybody at the table eat it? Did they like it? Did you end up having to throw some away because there was someone in the household who didn't? Why didn't they like it? It's really that whole journey through purchase to in-home, and doing in-home research is invaluable before you launch. You never know when there's going to be some red flag about your product that is just going to set off a consumer, and just you want to uncover those things before you go to market. Mm-hmm. So we're just really big believers in product research early, often, and as much as you can afford to do.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. And it's really based in know your consumer. Once you know them in and out, what they eat and breathe and sleep and think and what they're afraid of, like down to the nitty gritty, then you can really communicate with them. So in a way, we're talking about classic marketing, things like focus groups in and out of the home. I remember I started my career with the Kellogg Company, and I was on Special K and Frosted Mini Wheats. And those focus groups around Special K were so much fun because Special K was so meaningful to so many women. They really saw it as their partner every morning. This Special K was in their corner, helping them look good, helping them feel good. And I remember out of one focus group, I'll never forget this, we were at a round table of maybe 12 people, and one woman said, it's my little black dress. I know I can go to it every morning, just like I go to my closet and I reach for that little black dress. I go to my cupboard and I reach for my Special K. I can always rely on it. It's always going to be good to me. And then we ran many marketing campaigns around like, this is your little black dress. So just to say that you can get some valuable stuff just out of hanging out with your consumer in a very deep and intimate way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to do too much research, really.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You learn something from every piece that you do. And we believe very strongly in getting to the food as fast as possible, meaning getting food in the mouths of your consumers as fast as possible so that you can get that learning, as well as, all of the other good learning that's going to enable your launch plan, your go-to-market strategy, your packaging. Getting the packaging communication right. And there's no better way to do it than just mock up the package and put it in front of the consumer.
Yes, no guesswork needed. Let them tell you exactly what they want and you can get it right from them. But what we're talking about is products that, give or take, the consumer can wrap their mind around. So if it's a plant-based burger replicating a regular burger, you can probably get your mind around that. If it's mushroom bacon, going to take a little bit more, but in the end, bacon, and understand. Do you think the consumer is ready for fermented proteins and cultivated meats?
I do. I think a consumer, maybe not the consumer. I do think there's a cohort of people that are ready for it. I mean, I'm ready for it, but I'm in the business, so I don't count. Are baby boomers ready for it as a whole? Probably not. But when you talk to Gen Zs and you talk to a lot of millennials, they understand the challenges that we have in front of us. And feel it deeply and intimately. And frankly, a lot of us are feeling it deeply and intimately with even just the change in our weather patterns and the natural disasters. Look at what just happened to Puerto Rico this week.
Yes, right, exactly.
So, everybody's feeling it. And we know that, okay, it's either going to continue or it's going to get worse, or we need to do something about it. And if we don't do something about it, it will definitely get worse. So I think if anyone has the slightest bit of understanding of that, they're interested in and excited by technological solutions. And so precision fermentation to me represents so much of the future. I can see us making many, many, many different types of products using that technology. Now, where we are today is, it's slow going, and there really hasn't been anyone who's been able to scale it to the point where it's in really broad, widespread use, but not for lack of trying. So, there's assets being built, and there's companies out there doing great work with great product, and it's coming. And I think, especially as B2B ingredients, where consumers don't need to be educated as much as a front and center consumer product. I think there's a very huge opportunity for that in the short term and the long term.
I see that as well. And I see the innovation happening at two stages. So at the B2B stage, getting that scaling right for the product. And then once you get it into the hands of the actual food manufacturer, I think there'll be so much innovation happening around, now, what do we do with this novel technology, which really will revolutionize how we utilize our resources. So ultimately you can bypass animal agriculture in full. At least I'm talking about for dairy. So you won't have to grow the trees, cut them down, so that you grow crops and you water crops that have fiber and food and protein. Are you giving that food to people? No, you're giving it to animals. They need more time, more water, more land. And then you cut down more trees to grow more crops. You see just how we don't have the resources on the planet to feed a growing population, and the water use to spare with such disproportionate use on something that doesn't even go to people, it goes to animals. So you see the solutions, and ultimately this is what business does well. It addresses a problem by solving it at scale. So you see, once this technology for fermented protein scales, you see the major problem that it solves. And I agree with you. I think maybe not baby boomers, but everybody else is getting on board, and they're getting on board pretty quickly because it doesn't require a sacrifice from them. Have you ever had Brave Robot ice cream?
Yes.
It is ice cream. There's zero sacrifice. And the consumer likes that. No sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah. And Elizabeth, you mentioned a lot of the environmental benefits of that technology. And the other thing that the future of the technology holds when it scales is, I mean, the opportunity to control things like food safety issues that are a
Yes.
big challenge in the world of animal proteins. Um, not that they're everywhere, but when they happen, they can be quite just debilitating to the industry. And so to be able to control food safety in ways that we haven't been able to control for it with live animals, that's one thing. And then the other thing is precision, not just fermentation, but nutrition, and the way to design proteins, like you talked about dairy proteins, but design proteins that I don't even know which proteins, but for specific nutrition needs, for specific amino acid profiles, for specific functionalities, for specific, you name it. There's just really intriguing advancements that we don't even know what they are yet.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, the whole the whole food sector is so ripe for disruption in so many ways, not just because it's currently very wasteful in its use of resources, but also because the consumer wants so much more. Our food really hasn't changed in many ways thousands of years what we do. So now with technology in our pocket, you can have that personalized nutrition so that not, as you were saying, precision nutrition. So, what you need, Barb, might be very different than what I need. And we might both be able to get that mushroom bacon delivering as a platform omega-3s for me and vitamin D for you. I mean, who knows? So I just think that whole area is so very, very exciting. Okay, as we wrap up here a little bit, let me just ask you your predictions. We'll start with what we're talking about now, precision fermentation. What would you say? Scaled in the marketplace by 3 years, 5 years, 6 years? Where are we?
I don't know that I'm the right person to answer that. I think you're going to see probably a lot more of the brands that are doing that launching their own consumer products, like you said, like Perfect Day has done with some of their own consumer brands, just to start to educate the market, to get in there, to get consumers intrigued by it, even if they don't try the product. I don't know how long it's going to take to scale the technology. That's not really our area of expertise. But I do know that, if those companies are going to be successful in whether it's consumer products or whether it's going to market B2B as an ingredient solution, that there's work that needs to be done today to make sure that it can be validated in the best use case or best application that they envision that it would
Okay.
work.
Well, fair enough. Certainly, I see that. But even though if you're not working on this technology yourself, which, unfair question from me, because of course you're not, given what we know about Mattson, you are seeing a lot of ideas come through your labs. So with that, I know you can't give away any secrets, but with that in your pocket, what do you think we'll be seeing, let's say, 3 years out from now?
Oh, let's see. 3 years from now, I think you're going to see a lot more in like I started with today, in the meals space. So moving from just delivering the protein, just burgers and chicken nuggets and sausages, moving into things that really help consumers make a meal. So whether it's lunch, dinner, breakfast, snacking solutions, just a lot more convenient products, don't require necessarily cooking, don't require also bringing other things to the plate to make it a complete meal. So I am very bullish on the bigger opportunity in meal and snack solutions.
And you're seeing this as like in the frozen section and not home meal delivery. Is that correct?
Both. for
Oh,
sure.
both,
Both.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I see the frozen section really taking on a life of its own. I know now this would have been 8 months ago. I want to say it was January. I was in a grocery store in Chicago and I went to the frozen section and it had 10 doors of frozen meat. 4 of them from top to ceiling were plant-based.
Mhm.
I mean, plant-based is just and these weren't meals. These were just individual, buy your sausage and cook it up. So I think there's huge potential still left in the frozen section. And I agree with you. It's all about convenience. Millennials and Gen Z practically eat standing up on their way to going somewhere. So I exaggerate, but I think food on the go and the faster the better is kind of the name in the game. As we kind of wrap up here, I have a couple exit questions for you. I'm wondering, here you've been in this space for a very long time, and must be very exciting for you. I'll say, I know it's exciting for me to feel like you're about to live through a revolution in
Yeah.
your own category. I mean, that's really exciting. But that notwithstanding, let's take a look backwards. What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now? You can make it 5 or whatever.
Um, you know, I wish that I wish I had pitched more ideas to clients about
Interesting.
getting into plant-based alternatives, really.
Mm.
Or, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more about the changing environmental situation, and we could have started that work earlier, I guess. It's kind of snuck up on a lot of people. We didn't think it was going to be as bad as it is today. And so I think we would have been pitching those ideas to our clients, meaning the food and beverage industry, to get them started thinking about it. I mean, I remember pitching a line of dairy alternative beverages to a very, very large retailer 5 years ago. And it was like a major uphill strategic challenge to get anyone interested in this discussion around plant-based, even 5 years ago.
That's amazing.
For a retailer brand. And now, of course, all of the retailers, have their own brand on plant-based alternatives. So I guess I wish I knew more sooner, but that's kind of silly.
And I love that you mentioned this. I mean, it could be an entirely other show. We think of consumer packaged goods as the big brands with big branding budgets, big marketing budgets. But a lot of what is also driving plant-based is the white label from the retailer itself. Kroger has a brand. Whole Foods has their brand. So a lot of that is bringing the cost down, which is something we didn't talk about today, but we're always interested in. And, for any product to succeed, it has to taste great, but it also can't be twice as expensive. That won't work. So you're always interested in bringing down the price. So I love what you say there. And then I'll just share with everyone that I was recently speaking with the president of the World Business Council on Sustainable Development, Peter Bacher, and he was saying everyone's focused on 2050, that we have to switch up our ways of doing business to be more sustainable by 2050. And he says, actually, you have to have it in place by 2030 to reap the benefits by 2050. So it's not 2+ decades, it's 5 years and some change. So definitely the heat is on. So I share your wish that I had fully recognized this earlier. A couple of quickie exit questions for you. So you are so busy helping so many people. So you're having a busy day and maybe the day isn't going the way you would like it to. What is a phrase that you tell yourself to get yourself back in the game?
Well, one of the things that I like to say is innovation hurts. And if innovation doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right. So sometimes that's hard when, we're in the midst of a project and things are just way more difficult than we expected. I have to tell the team, this is innovation. It hurts. And when it hurts, it means we're doing something new. It means we're doing something that is going to matter. It's going to be seen as different. And so just feel the pain and know that the end result is going to be amazing. So I definitely say that to myself all the time. Innovation hurts. It's just going to hurt for a little while, but that's it.
I used to say innovate or die, and I'm not the one who came up with that. Someone else came up with that, but now I'm going to say innovate or die and be prepared for it to be painful, according to Barb Stuckey. Okay, and then my last two quickie questions for you. So as we said, you're very busy running around. You don't have time for lunch. What is your go-to snack?
Oh, go-to snack. Cheese.
Really?
Dairy.
It's
dairy.
Oh, your big downfall. Barb,
Dairy.
we are going to reinvent the dairy category just for you.
Give me a really great Gruyere. Give me an aged cheddar. I am waiting for it. I am looking forward to it. I have not seen those products, and cheese it works for me. It's high in protein. It's delicious. It's easy. So that's, I need someone to solve the problem for me.
Hurry, people. We know what task we are now set with. We must find plant-based cheese for Barb, or through precision fermentation. We'll get that cheese out of your fridge. Don't you worry. Is that something we would always find in your fridge? What are we always going to find in your fridge?
In my fridge, wine, first and foremost. It is plant-based. Always cheese, always good cheese, really excellent cheese, aged cheeses, snacking cheeses. What else are you going to find? You're going to find a lot of vegetables. We eat a lot of real vegetables in salad form, but also just, for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, and also beans. I still think that beans, we didn't talk about beans at all today, but one of the least sexy foods out there with an incredible amount of upside. And I am watching chickpeas and black beans and fava and all of these incredible protein and fiber powerhouses. You'll find a ton of beans in my diet, and I know they can go further.
Yes. And talk about a healthy platform for people. I don't think they realize the benefits of the protein and fiber and how good beans actually are for you. And I think there's a lot of innovation to be done with beans. So stay tuned for that, everybody. I'm going to say goodbye now, Barb. Thank you for being with us. I super do appreciate it. You don't go anywhere, but everybody else on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I will see you next week. Barb, stay put.